Grief doesn't knock. It lets itself in. But that night, the door didn't. I stood on the porch, holding keys that suddenly felt foreign. The house looked the same. But it wasn't. The porch light, still flickering from the bulb I never got around to changing. The welcome mat I bought for us. The wind chimes Ethan said were too loud, but secretly loved. And yet, when I slid the key into the lock, it didn't turn. Not jammed. Not rusty. Just resistant. Like the house knew before I did. I tried again. No click. No give. The lock had forgotten me. Or maybe someone had made sure it did. That's when I heard them. Voices inside. The familiar scrape of chair legs on hardwood. The soft clink of porcelain. Laughter, sharp and practiced. Her laughter. Diana. Ethan's mother. The woman who always spoke to me like I was a substitute teacher she didn't expect to last the semester. And Jocelyn. Her echo. The cousin who never missed a chance to remind me that blood ties run deeper than rings. They were inside. In my home. Before me. Without me. The door opened suddenly. Not from my hand. From hers. Diana stood there, framed by the porch light. Her lips curved into a smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh, you're here." As if she'd forgotten I existed. As if I hadn't just spent 3 nights sleeping on a hospital couch while Ethan slipped away. As if she wasn't the one who told me she'd handle the house stuff while I grieved. I stepped forward. "My key isn't working." She tilted her head. Faux concern. Must be a glitch. These old locks can be temperamental. Jocelyn appeared behind her. Arms crossed. Smirking like she'd been cast for this role months ago. "We were just tidying up," she said. "You've been through so much. Thought we'd lighten your load." Lighten. They meant erase. I looked past them. The furniture was rearranged. Ethan's record player gone. My books, packed into boxes by the stairs. They were gutting the house while I was still holding the pieces of him. "This is my home," I said quietly. Diana's smile didn't falter. "Honey, it was his home. And now it returns to family." The words landed softly. Calculated. Polished to pass as sympathy. But underneath I heard the truth. You were temporary. This was never yours. I felt my breath slow. Not panic. Clarity. "The mortgage says otherwise." Jocelyn scoffed. "Technicalities. Let's not make this difficult." But I wasn't the one making it difficult. They just hadn't expected me to stay standing. Diana stepped aside, as if offering me a choice. But it wasn't a choice. It was a warning. And in that moment, I understood. They thought grief would make me soft. Pliable. Easy to sweep out with the dust. They forgot who built this home. Who refinanced it when Ethan's business collapsed. Who paid every bill while Diana sent thoughts and prayers from her condo 4 states away. They forgot, but I hadn't. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. I simply turned around. Walked back to my car. Each step louder than their carefully crafted silence. As I drove away, the house stood in my rearview mirror. Still standing. But this time, I wasn't the one locked out. They were. They just didn't know it yet. Later, in the dim glow of a cheap motel room, I replayed Ethan's last voicemail. His voice cracked but certain. "If Mom tries anything, check the drawer under the desk. You'll know what to do." I hadn't checked. Not yet. But now. Now I would. Because they thought this was over. They thought locking me out was the end. But all they did was invite a war they weren't ready for. Grief knocks. Family barges in. But legacy? Legacy waits quietly, until you're ready to claim it back. They stole my keys. But the paperwork was still mine. The motel ceiling was cracked. The lamp flickered like it was struggling to stay awake. But I wasn't tired. Not anymore. Grief sharpens you in strange places. You think it softens you, but really, it teaches you how to cut back. Cleanly. Quietly. Ethan's voice echoed in my head. If Mom tries anything, check the drawer under the desk. So I did. At sunrise, I drove back. Not through the front. The side gate never latched properly. They never noticed. Because people like Diana and Jocelyn? They watch the front door, never the foundation. They guard appearances, but they forget where the real weight sits. The workshop smelled like sawdust and quiet promises. Ethan's safe space. My space now. The desk sat under the window. Sunlight barely kissing its edges. Bottom drawer. Old brass handle. I pulled. Papers. Files. Folders. And there it was. A manila envelope. Labeled in Ethan's messy scroll. In case of family drama. Of course he called it that. Inside, a refinancing documents, a payment receipts, the mortgage deed, and a post-nuptial agreement with both our signatures. Dated. Notarized. Undeniable. It was all here. Proof that when his business crumbled, I didn't walk away. Proof that while Diana was busy managing his image, I was managing his survival. And this house. This wasn't charity. This was earned. I traced my fingers over the signature. His name. My name. Side by side. Legally. Emotionally. Not for show. For truth. They thought I'd leave quietly. But silence holds receipts. And mine had interest. I spent the rest of the morning gathering more. Emails. Bank transfers. Texts. Every time I covered a mortgage payment while they posed for family brunch photos. Every time Ethan apologized because they don't see it, but I do. I saw it too. Now I had the proof. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Because timing is everything. And this was a slow reveal. A lesson in patience. Instead, I made my first move. Small. Precise. The funeral list. Diana had planned a grand affair. Church, press, social pages flooded with curated grief. But Ethan had left me the contact list. And the power to approve invitations. So I did. And some names didn't make the cut. Not out of spite. Out of respect. Because grief isn't a performance. And family. Family doesn't get front row seats after trying to bulldoze the stage. They would find out soon enough. But today was for quiet reclamation. I left through the side gate again. Calm. Unnoticed. Just like they preferred. But this time, it was my choice. Back at the motel, I laid everything out on the bed. Documents. Receipts. Evidence. And in the middle of it all, a simple photo. Me and Ethan. Laughing. Unposed. Real. The photo they never displayed. Too messy. Too honest. To us. That night, Angela called. She was my roommate in college. Now a lawyer. The kind who fights quiet wars for people the world underestimates. I told her everything. She listened. No pity. Just strategy. They made a mistake, Ratch, she said. They thought you wouldn't fight back. I smiled. Then let's teach them otherwise. As we spoke, I remembered the first time Diana met me. She called me the wrong kind of resilient. Funny how that's exactly what was going to undo her now. The next morning, as the city stirred awake, I stood by the motel window. Coffee in hand. Papers ready. The battle lines were drawn. But they didn't even know they were standing on my side of the field. Yet. They thought silence meant surrender. But silence remembers. It keeps records. It keeps score. And when the time is right, silence speaks. Grief is loud. But sometimes the dead whisper louder. It was still early when I returned to the house. Not through the front. Never through the front. The side gate welcomed me again. Rusted. Honest. Unlike the people inside. The house was empty. For now. Diana had errands to run. Jocelyn had a yoga class. Morning, apparently, could be scheduled between brunch and Pilates. Fine. Because I wasn't here to confront them. Not yet. I was here to find what Ethan wanted me to find. The office was untouched. Their arrogance, their undoing. They assumed anything of value would be in the safe. They forgot Ethan never trusted safes. He trusted me. I scanned the room. Desk drawers. Bookshelves. The old stereo. Then I saw it. The blue journal. Weathered edges. Spine cracked from overuse. Hidden in plain sight. I opened it. Page 1. In case Mom pulls her usual stunts, check the envelope taped under the desk. I smiled. Of course. The underside of the desk was dusty. Splinters caught on my sleeve. But there it was. A plain white envelope. Taped, stubbornly, with 3 layers of masking tape. His handwriting on the front. Ratch, this is yours. For when they pretend it's not. My fingers trembled. Not from fear. From knowing he had planned for this moment. From realizing he'd never trusted them to do right by me. Inside, a letter. His words. His truth. The last defense he could give me. I hate that you're reading this without me there. But you and I both know how this goes. Mom will make noise. Jocelyn will play innocent. Dad will pretend it's not his business. But this house? This life we built here? It's yours. You didn't just pay the bills. You kept me standing when I forgot how. You were the reason I got back up. So when they try to tell you otherwise, show them this. I chose you. Legally. Fully. Not out of charity. Out of truth. Don't let their noise drown that out. I read it twice. Then a third time. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't rehearsed. It was Ethan. Blunt. Honest. Protective. Even in death. Attached to the letter was a copy of the postnuptial agreement. Signed. Witnessed. Dated 6 months before his diagnosis. Before they could argue coercion. Before they could twist his love into weakness. This was my shield. Theirs was performance. Mine was proof. As I sat there, surrounded by his words, I remembered the last real fight we had. He said, "You give people more chances than they deserve." He wasn't wrong. But this wasn't about giving them a chance. This was about giving myself one. To finally stand in the truth without flinching. I took photos of everything. Scanned the documents. Saved copies in 3 different drives. Ethan would have been proud. He always said, hope for the best, prep for the worst. Before I left, I placed the letter back in the envelope. Tucked it into my bag. Close to my chest. Because this wasn't just paper. It was the weight of every time they called me temporary. Every time they dismissed my place in his life. This was the answer to every quiet erasure they had planned. As I locked the office door behind me, I whispered, thank you. Not to the room. To him. I didn't confront them that day. No need. This wasn't a fight for volume. This was a battle of facts. And now, I had every weapon I needed. Angela called again that night. I told her what I found. She laughed. Low, sharp. They just lost before they even started. I smiled. Not out of spite. Out of relief. Because when you've spent years being underestimated, the quietest victories taste the sweetest. The funeral was in 3 days. They'd expect me to stand at the back. Head down. Hands folded. But that wasn't the story anymore. Ethan had written a different ending. And I was about to turn the page. Sometimes the loudest protection comes from the ones who can no longer speak. But they don't need to shout when their truth is written in ink, and you're ready to carry it forward. They came with lawyers and smiles. But I came with proof. The summons arrived folded in half, delivered by a man who wouldn't meet my eyes. Inside, legal jargon dressed up to look civilized. Disputed property. Concerns of undue influence. Contesting ownership. But really it was Diana's voice screaming through the paper. How dare you win? I sat at the motel desk. Documents spread out. The weight of truth in black and white. Angela's voice on speaker. Calm. Measured. Lethal. They're banking on noise. On intimidation. On you folding under the pressure. She paused. But we both know, you don't fold. The hearing was set. Small courthouse. Low ceilings. Bad fluorescent lighting. Diana arrived first. Of course. Draped in black. Pearls. A widow's performance. Jocelyn flanked her. No makeup. Hair tied back like a prop from a sad act. They looked at me like I was trespassing. I smiled. Because I wasn't the guest here. I was the owner. The judge called us in. Diana's lawyer started the show. Polite. Oily. This is a delicate matter, Your Honor. Our client's son was not in a clear state of mind when this post-nuptial agreement was signed. He painted Ethan as confused. Vulnerable. A victim of my persistent influence. I sat still. Because noise means nothing when you hold the receipts. Angela stood. No theatrics. Just facts. The agreement was signed 6 months before Mr. Wallace's diagnosis. Witnessed. Notarized. With full financial transparency, she laid the documents on the table. One by one. Bank statements. Mortgage records. The cognitive assessment Ethan passed with full marks. The truth, lined up like dominoes. Mrs. Wallace's contributions are well documented. Her ownership is not a matter of sentiment. It's a matter of record. Diana shifted. Her lawyer coughed. But the judge was already nodding. Because facts don't bend to ego. The ruling was swift. Post-nuptial agreement upheld. Property remains with the respondent. Case dismissed. Just like that. Years of their entitlement. Gone. Not with a bang. With a sentence. Outside, Diana cornered me. Of course she did. This isn't over. Her voice was low. No more audience to perform for. I tilted my head. It is for me. Jocelyn chimed in. You think a piece of paper makes you family? I smiled. No. But it makes this house mine. And that's all you ever cared about. Diana's mask cracked. You'll never erase me. I stepped closer. You erased yourself the moment you tried to rewrite him. She didn't have a response. Because the truth doesn't need to yell. It just stands. As they left, I didn't watch them go. I looked up. Sky gray. Air sharp. But I felt light. Because carrying someone else's expectations is exhausting. And setting them down? Liberating. Back at the house, I unlocked the front door. One smooth turn. The lock remembered me now. Or maybe it had just been waiting for me to stop asking for permission. The living room was empty. Quiet. But not hollow. Because this wasn't a stage for their performances anymore. It was home. Mine. I poured a cup of tea. Sat by the window. And let the silence settle. Not as absence. As peace. They would talk. They always do. But outside noise can't touch what's built on truth. And Ethan? He knew that. He knew me. They came with lawyers. With smiles. With noise. But the thing about noise is, it fades. Truth stays. Etched in ink. Held in hands that refuse to let it be rewritten. They wanted to erase me. But Ethan had already signed the truth. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Fluorescent lights. Polished floors. The kind of place where stories are bent until they break. But not today. Diana's lawyer spoke first. Soft words wrapped around sharp lies. He painted Ethan as a confused man. A son manipulated. A husband led astray by my so-called ambitions. The subtext was clear. She doesn't belong. This was never hers. They had pictures. Family events where I wasn't there. Conversations where my name wasn't mentioned. Proof, they said, that I wasn't part of the core. But you don't need to be in their photos to be in his life. And I had what mattered. Angela stood. No dramatics. Just evidence. The postnuptial agreement was signed voluntarily. Witnessed. Notarized. She laid out the timeline. 6 months before diagnosis. 2 years after I took over mortgage payments. 4 years of documented contributions. Receipts. Bank statements. Legal filings. Facts. She held up Ethan's cognitive assessment. Clear. Undeniable. Mr. Wallace was of sound mind. And more importantly, he made a sound choice. The judge reviewed the documents. Quiet. Methodical. Then came the verdict. Simple. Final. The agreement stands. The property belongs to Mrs. Wallace. Case dismissed. Diana's face didn't crack. It shattered. Jocelyn looked down, suddenly fascinated by the courtroom tiles. Their story buried under the weight of what they refused to acknowledge. Outside, Diana approached me one last time. Her words softer now. Less venom. More resignation. You might have won the house. But you'll never be family. I smiled. You're right. Because family doesn't treat people like this. I turned. Left her standing there. Because some victories don't need witnesses. Just peace. Back home, I unlocked the front door. Smooth. Familiar. The house didn't resist this time. Because now, there was no one left to fight its truth. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. Of memories. Of work. Of love that wasn't loud, but was real. And now it was mine. They tried to take the house. I grew a garden from their failure. Spring came slowly. The ground thawed. The air softened. And with it, so did I. The garden had been Ethan's dream. Not a manicured showpiece. A living thing. Wild. Untamed. Real. He drew sketches for it. Pages and pages of ideas that never made it past his notebook. Until now. I planted marigolds first. Their color bold. Defiant. The kind of flower that doesn't beg for attention, but earns it anyway. Just like him. Just like me. One morning, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single piece of paper. Typed. Formal. But the message was sharp. This house will always be ours. No matter what the paperwork says. No signature. But I knew the author. Their pettiness had a scent. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I took that letter and buried it beneath the marigolds. Let their bitterness rot into the soil. Feed something beautiful. Because that's what they never understood. They saw the house as a trophy. A prize. But to me, it was a foundation. For peace. For legacy. For growth. The business restarted itself. Word spread quietly. Not through social pages, but through people. People who remembered how Ethan and I built spaces that felt like home. No flash. Just warmth. No show. Just substance. One day, a message arrived. From Jocelyn. Short. Unexpected. I was wrong. He chose you. I see that now. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. But because not every confession needs an audience. That summer, the marigolds bloomed in wild, joyful defiance. And as I stood barefoot in the grass, sun on my skin, I realized something simple. They don't haunt me anymore. Because this house, this life, is mine. I didn't win through noise. I won through persistence. Through truth. Through not walking away from what was rightfully mine. And now, I don't have to fight anymore. Because every brick, every petal, every breath in this space whispers the same thing. You stayed. You built. You belong. They tried to evict me from my own story. But some homes are built with more than walls. They're built with truth.